Hello all, my name is Dave Magnuson. I am a professional engineer and have been for over 40 years. On April 3rd of this year, I received an email from Mr. Chris Tarrant, President of your condominium association. In that email, he requested that I review and comment on an email that one of your members distributed to the membership. In response to the email, I thought I would put together some information about the Condominium Act, the regulations to the Condominium Act, and particularly as they apply to the Reserve Fund and the Reserve Fund study, and also information about the appropriateness of my reports, both the 2017 Reserve Fund report and the one I did in 2022. Hopefully this information will clear up any misunderstandings any of the membership may have about these things. All of the information regarding the Condominium Act and its regulations are available on the internet. Just Google the Manitoba Condominium Act and Regulations and you'll find all the information you need. The rules and regulations concerning your condominium association, its operations, the executive's responsibilities, how it operates the reserve fund, etc., etc., etc. Common elements, whatever you need to know, is included in the declaration, and I would suggest that you read it if you're unclear about any of its aspects. The second part of the presentation deals with some aspects of the reserve fund and what the management needs to do in order to deal with it. The last part of the presentation deals with probability analysis, probability distribution curves, Monte Carlo analysis, the data that we have, what we know about the data, and some ways which we might be able to get a grasp of things by using Monte Carlo analysis and probabilistic techniques to look at the Gilwell situation. What I'd like everyone to do is take a look at the first 10 or so slides and just get an appreciation of what they say. I hope after doing that you will have a good understanding of my thought process when I put together the Reserve Fund study, and also an understanding as to why, in the Gilwell situation, it is really impossible to meet the requirements of the Condominium Act as far as Reserve Fund study goes because of Gilwell's unique situation.
We left mountains, geysers, ice and fire, waterfalls and fjords. We left our friends, our farm, our salmon stream. We left the ocean far behind with all we could afford. We left our homeland, Iceland, for our dream. In 75, New Iceland grew from Gimle's sandy shore. We built our homes with all we found in nature's varied store. Not huts of sod, oh no, thank God, we built our homes with wood. No sheep dung heap to warm our feet, but blazing fires stood. In this land of many wonders, we had gained what we came for. We left the trusty pony for the dog team and the sleigh. We traded midnight summers for the fly-infested day. The bitter cold too took her toll, and fate called many shots. The raging flu and fever threw the scourge of the smallpox. In this land of many wonders, Mother Nature had her way. We changed the land and we changed too, as we kept pushing on. Gade Villeg William changed to Gary, Bill and John. From Reykjavik to Willow Creek, from Brenniveen to Beer. From Yow and Nay to Well OK, from Elskanmeen to Deer. In this land of many wonders, we were coming right along. We've lost the Saga language and the old Icelandic poem, but we've kept the Viking spirit of the stock from which we've grown. We gained a land that's mighty grand, and looking through the years, we got much more than we came for in the Iceland we built here. This land of many wonders we are proud to call our home. We found prairies, lakes and for the swamp in the wilderness we fought, for our children with our neighbors hand in hand. We made it all, we made it last, the good life that we sought. We made Canada according to our plan. At East Landing Daggeran we meet in Gimli to celebrate the fortunes we have found. To make sure the best traditions of old Iceland never die in the children of this new Icelandic town. At East Landing Daggeran we crown the mountain maid, both young and old, eat harfisker and scared. We come from miles around to join the old songs sung and played at this legendary new Icelanders Fair. At this legendary new Icelanders Fair.
The primary purpose of the Reserve Fund study is to provide the association executive with information to allow it to make good decisions for managing the reserve fund. For Gilwell, this is essentially establishing a target for the fund and based upon the target, setting the condominium fees, and then also with the information available in the reserve fund study as to the potential damage and so on, determining how to pay for damage once they occur. Secondary purpose is to provide information for prospective unit purchasers to assess the financial well-being of the association prior to finalizing a purchase agreement. Managing the reserve fund for Gilwell Estates is essentially an exercise in dealing with uncertain events. We do not know when the damage is going to occur, and we do not know how much it's going to be. So essentially, we are dealing with uncertain events about which we have no control and very limited knowledge. What else do we know about our data? I personally do not know much about the damaging events that occurred in 2008 and before, but I do know that the 2010 weather bomb caused a significant amount of damage, much of which was paid for by the government. And we all know that it was an extremely rare event that caused this damage. So, by consequence, we can assume that the damage that occurred is probably a fairly infrequent event. And with the 2014 repairs, I think we're all in agreement that the repair was excessive and went beyond what was required, so that, in addition to repairing the area, it was significantly improved. So that damage is probably not quite as frequent as we might think it might be. I attempted to develop a reasonable prediction of some probability distributions that might fit our data. I made some assumptions. The first assumption I made that damaging events will occur with approximately the same frequency as they have historically, i.e., 6 out of 31 years we'll have some sort of damage. And because we know the 2010 event was very rare, that a probability of a similar event is considerably less than indicated by our sample. And because we think that the 2014 repairs were, beyond what is really needed, those are probably also a little less rare than we might think. What we have here in red is what looks like a typical probability distribution curve. In our case, the damages on the y-axis are independent event, and the possible ranges in damage, of course, are from 0 to whatever the maximum might be. We don't know the maximum. Too bad we don't, but we don't. And on the x-axis, it's the probability of the damage being less than a certain amount, as recorded on the damage axis. We're going to try to fit the probability distribution such that about 80% of the time we will have damage less than that occurred in, than that which occurred in 2006. And the maximum damage possible, I'm going to do two different curves. One assuming the maximum possible damage is $75,2023, and the other one assuming $300,000. This is the probability distribution curve that I came up with for a maximum damage of $75,000 every year. So what it means is that we have a minimum damage of 0, which we can expect to happen, most of the time, and a maximum damage possible of $75,000. So in any given year, we can expect damage of 0 to 75,000 if this curve is correct. The return period is sort of the average number of years you can expect this kind of damage to occur. For instance, the 2014 event, which we consider very rare, with this curve, we can expect it to occur about once every 150 years on average, and so on and so on with the similar damaging amounts. What we have here is the probability distribution that I developed for a $300,000 maximum damage event. Of course, the damage, as you can see on the y-axis, can go from 0 to $300,000, and as would be expected, the probability of having sort of a high number damaging event becomes greater, as can be seen by the return period on the chart here. When you compare those return periods to the 75,000 return periods, the earlier ones, or the smaller ones, are sort of similar, but as you get into the high probability or low probability damaging events, I should say, 59,000, for instance, has a return period of 28,000, or pardon me, of 28 years here, and 150 for the 75 damaging event. This is a bit of a comparison of the two distributions that I put together. About the only significant thing to note here is that any particular damaging event would have a much higher probability of occurring, with a $300,000 damage and the $75,000 damage. And we'll see how that works when we do our simulations. What we have here, the starting parameters for the model are the initial starting amount in the reserve fund, a scenario for a probability distribution, 75 or 300, and annual contribution amounts. As you would expect, to get the scenario, you just click the button. So let's just do that. The way the model works, excuse me, we start off with a reserve fund amount in year 1, and if we have some damage in year 1, and we have a little bit here of $2,000, we subtract that from the initial balance, and then we add our $6,000 to end up with what we end up at. And as each year goes on, we do sort of the same thing. We reestablish what the fund is, the amount in the fund based upon the damage that occurs, and the added contributions. Every year is considered a random event, and so we use a random number generator to pick out a probability from the distribution curve, and we just get 30 of them, and then we fill in the table, just doing the arithmetic. So in this particular case, we can see there are no special assessments required, and there are some damaging amounts. Just, we can consider the green ones being 0 damage. There's damage that occurs in every year based upon the probability, because it goes from 0 to 1,000 and so forth. So there is a little bit, but it's nothing. I guess this sort of accumulate over time a bit. But anyways, let's take some more scenarios and see what happens. Again, nothing too serious. The reserve fund grows nicely. It gets up to a significant amount, and then you get some serious damage towards the end of the period. Very benign, nice chunk of change at the end. A bit of a special assessment required, not very much overall. A total of $3,000 in special assessments over the period. So we can see, with the $6,000 annual contribution, and if the $75,000 maximum amount is anywhere near reality, and the probability curve is somewhat close to what actually exists, then we're pretty good with these kinds of contributions. So now let's take a look and see what could happen if our actual maximum damage is significantly higher. How will our reserve fund behave based upon our contributions and the probability distribution that we developed for the $300,000 maximum damage? So let's just take a look at a few of those. Well, not bad, nothing. No special assessment required. Nice chunk of change at the end. Some damaging events, of course, as you would expect. Again, here we have a minor amount. So, we're at 75, no wonder. Sorry about that. Let's go back to 300,000. Okay, now we'll see what's going on. A little bit of a special assessment required early. We have a $38,000 hit and $18,000 hit in year one, resulting in the need for a bit of a special assessment in year four. Hardly anything over the whole period, $500 over 30 years. I think you can live with that. Couple of special assessments required during this period, still end up with $39,000 at the end, but $75,000, average damage of $8,000, hence the need for some special assessments. So you can see with the $300,000 maximum potential damage, it can look pretty ugly from time to time. But the good thing about that is that the $300,000, I think, is an extremely high amount and very, very unlikely. It's probably, too high. We don't know, of course. We don't know what the maximum damage could possibly be. And we also don't know if the shape of our distribution curves that we're looking at is really what is actually the distribution curve of potential damage at Gilwell. But in any case, what I try to do here was just demonstrate what might happen and sort of try to do what I could with the data and develop some scenarios that were sort of more or less realistic. And I guess it's up to the management and the Gilwell Condominium Association to deal with that and make their decision.